In the name of the God who created us, in the name of the Christ who teaches us, in the name of the Spirit who journeys alongside us throughout our lives, welcome home, children of God. Peace be with you. Good morning and welcome to First Presbyterian Church as we gather together as God's people in this place. It is good to be with you this morning. I welcome you whether you are joining us here in person or online today. Thank you for giving of your time to be a part of this worship service. If you would please take a moment if you're here and sign the blue friendship registers that are on the inside aisle. If you're online, please sign in on the YouTube chat. This is part of a thing we began maybe 4 years ago called Everyone Counts. And the idea is that every Sunday we want to celebrate that the gift of your time is an important piece of worship. And so we commit to giving $1 as a church for everybody, every person in worship each Sunday to a different ministry. Today is one of those semi-rare fifth Sundays of the month. So it means our recipient today is Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. It's a national ministry of our denomination, of the FPCe USA. And one of the important things it works to do is to get resources quickly all around the world to wherever there are already first responders in the event of disasters, natural disasters, other kinds of emergencies. To help people out is a tremendously effective ministry, and so you are helping to support the work of that today by giving of your time to worship. So thank you. A couple of things going on today, this week. First, I need to issue a retraction or a correction for my sermon last week. Several of you informed me on my way out that Watson and Crick were not the only two people who discovered DNA. Yes. I was not aware of this. So and genuinely, that's one of the things I love about this congregation is I feel like I learn stuff every week. But if you, like me, were uninformed, there was another person who contributed to the discovery of DNA. Her name was Rosalind Franklin. As I understand it, David, I think you had information on this. Her research was stolen, is that correct? Okay. Appropriated, thank you. Her research was appropriated by Watson and Crick, who were then largely credited with that discovery without Rosalind or Franklin also being included in that. So I learned something new. Thank you all for helping me learn, and if you didn't know that as well, you've now learned something new. So that said, a couple other things going on. First, at 2 o'clock today, downstairs, we are going to celebrate Ms. Katie Connolly with a baby shower. That's, let's see, any more they need to know about that? I'm looking for any of the folks helping host that. Y'all come, yes, for sure. That's going to be downstairs at 2. So please come help celebrate. Yeah. Is it really? Oh, what a wonderful way to kind of bring a circle to that celebration. So, yeah. I don't doubt it. But thank you for sharing that, Pat. I did not know that. That's a great. I will think of that this afternoon as we celebrate Katie. Theologian in Residence, a wonderful lecture series at Tusculum University begins this Friday, 10 to 12, 12:30. It's a free lecture series. You can join online if you don't want to go there. If you do go, they'll feed you lunch. I am looking forward to that. I know a couple of others of you in here might go. Whether you can join in person or not, I invite you to consider participating in that. There's information in the e-news about how to register, but it is free. They just would like to know so you can get a Zoom link or know who to count for lunch. That's Friday morning. Friday evening, Mike and Teresa begin their a month-long art show at the Nelson Gallery in downtown Johnson City. And they're going to be there from 6 to 9 to kick off the month-long celebration. So come join them and look at their fantastic art and help them celebrate this. What, Mike? For me, yes. But great opportunity. Nelson Gallery this Friday, 6 to 9. BYOB, is that what somebody said? Let's see. We will have a congregational meeting this morning to elect some members of the nominating committee. That's going to take place during worship, so we'll do that in a few moments. Or a little later in worship, but know that that's coming. We've got some beautiful flowers up here today. They were given in memory of Jean's daughter, David's wife, Noel Cleat, who passed away about a week and a half ago. The memorial service for Noel will be this coming Saturday at 4 o'clock here in the church. I think that's what I have. You all know any other announcements, joys, concerns, anything I have missed? Okay. Our service is, come on up, Stacy. Our service is going to run a little bit differently today than normal. I'll say a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But anyway, just pay attention to your bulletin, the stage cues, because we're going to run a little different. But now Stacy's going to, no. Before Stacy, I'm sorry. I did not mean to skip over this part. Our welcome and land acknowledgement that we begin every week with, and that is to celebrate, as we do every week, the basic core of our gospel, that God loves us all without condition and without exception. Because in our beautiful diversity, we all reflect the image of God. God's image welcomes our diverse sexual and gender identities, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, straight, male, female, non-binary. God's love welcomes our diverse ethnicities, black, brown, white, Asian, indigenous. God's love welcomes our questioning, our belief or unbelief, our exploration of the richness of human knowledge found in science, in diverse religions and spiritualities. God's love welcomes us whether we are rich or poor, young or old, able-bodied or disabled, suffering or rejoicing. God's love welcomes everyone without condition and without exception. So welcome God's beloved community. We give thanks for this ancestral Cherokee land on which we are gathered, and for the loving waters of the Watauga and Doe River watersheds that nourish us. As we continue in this time of worship, we pledge ourselves to work for truth and reconciliation among all peoples, and respect for creation and for one another in all we say and do. So let us continue our worship, and now Stacy's going to lead us in one of my favorite poems by one of my favorite authors, Wendell Berry, Peace of Wild Things.
When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water. I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
Let me invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we're able, and we'll join together in singing our first hymn today. It is called As Partners in Christ's Service. It's 761 in your hymnals.
Fresh new lines of faith to trace.
Feel free to be seated.
No longer strangers and aliens, but you are citizens with the saints and also members of the household of God, built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, with Christ Jesus himself at the cornerstone. In him the whole structure is joined together and grows in a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you are also built together spiritually into a dwelling place for God.
Thank you, Stacy. So, let me say a little bit more about what we're going to do this morning. We are required by our bylaws and the Book of Order to have an annual meeting every year. And that, for us, falls on the last Sunday of January. It's a chance, the business we have to do today is to elect some members of the nominating committee, and we'll take care of that a little later in the service. But more importantly than that, today is a chance, I hope, for all of us to gather around in celebration for the work that this church does. And there are so many different things this church is involved in. And you may not have had a chance, I imagine many of you probably haven't had a chance to look at the annual report yet. There's some stuff in there that's numbers and statistics that a few of you may enjoy seeing. Please, enjoy that if you're one of those folks. But more than that, we want to celebrate all of the ministry that takes place in this community. And so what I'm going to try to do this morning is something a little different, and we'll see how well it works out. New ideas. It may be some learning curve with this, but I'm going to try to weave together a little bit of a sermon with hearing from some of you all who have been involved in helping to lead these different ministries as committee chairs or as folks working with one of these different areas of ministry. And we're going to kind of do that as we look a little bit at some highlights of the annual report together. And we'll pause at some different places to hear from you all and to hear from the choir and some other things. So first off, though, a piece of logistical information. There is a QR code in your bulletin. If you are familiar with those, many smartphones, you can pull up your church camera, your phone camera. It's a church camera today because you're in church. Pull up your camera, scan that QR code, and usually you can tap that, and it should pull up an electronic copy of the annual report. If you don't have access to that, you have a web browser. You can go to fpce.church/report. That'll take you to the same place. I have printed off 19 more copies here, which I know we have more than 19 people here. If you need a paper copy, trying to find that balance between knowing not everybody feels comfortable looking at stuff on a smartphone or a tablet, but also recognizing that printing 20 copies is 400 pages of copies, and we want to be conscientious of our use and things like that as a green congregation. So if you need a paper copy, if you will raise your hand, share with somebody if you can. Let's see. Roddy, you had your hand up. Let's see. Anybody else up here? Yeah. Share. Yeah. Okay. Kathy, you're walking up. Can I prevail upon you to hand these? Thank you so much for reading my mind and being on top of that. If you are joining us online, if all works as planned, Scott will, or Tristan, I think, is running I don't know who's running computer today? Flipping a coin. Scott or Tristan won, or Nico, didn't see Nico behind the screen. You'll hear from our digital media team a little bit later, but we're so grateful for the folks who are up there that make it possible to live stream every Sunday. They've got shots of each page of the annual report they'll kind of walk through so you can follow along. So everybody able to get a hold of something so you can follow along in some way with what we're going over. I think Kathy's got a couple left. If you need one, please take one, because what's even worse than printing a bunch of copies is printing copies that don't get used. So, I'm going to give Kathy just a minute, so I'm not, yeah. Anybody else up here? We got Carol back there, and then we got a couple. Kathy's got a couple left. Everybody needs one. Bill, here. Yeah, Bill will take one, and I think Pat maybe, and Megan. Okay, if you got two, I'll take them. If not, then do you have one, Kathy? Okay. No, I want them to get used, and it was a guess at how many we needed. So, okay, so first off, thanks to Stacy for reading this morning. She read a short excerpt from the letter to the Ephesians that was at least claimed to be written by Paul, probably written by a disciple of Paul, but uses the metaphor of, talks about church or the gathering of people as a household. Now, you all know we get all kinds of metaphors for the church in the Bible. In some places it's described as an ark, like the thing that Noah put all the animals in. And so, and in fact, here's a fun little piece of trivia if you have never heard this. The place where you all are sitting, like in church jargon, is called a nave. Anybody heard that word? Okay. Nave, from the same Latin root as the word navy, meaning ship. So the place you all are sitting comes from the Latin root of the word ship, coming from that image of the church being an ark, like a place to gather, ride out the storm in safety. Jesus talks about the church as branches on a vine, so this living, growing organism rooted in something from which we can draw nourishment, like a plant does from the soil. Paul describes church, and I'm sure many of you have heard this, as a body, and we're all different parts of that: eyes, ears, nose, arms, legs, whatever. And so this morning we get another metaphor for the church as a household. And many of us, most of us perhaps, live in some kind of household. Those can take all different kinds of forms, as we know. But it's hopefully a metaphor we can find some resonance with, and thinking about what it takes to be a part of a household, whether that's a household of one or a household of a dozen or more. And so I want to invite us to take a moment this morning and consider the metaphor of the church, our church family, as a household. We bring different people together to share a space, sometimes share a meal together, make decisions together about the well-being and the future of our household. And so as I said, worship will look a little different because we're going to try to explore that metaphor, the things that we do together as a household. And I'll start off with what maybe certainly is an important part of the functioning of a household, but may, in terms of celebrating what we do as a church, be less exciting to some of you than what I hope we talk about as we go on. But that's to just begin by talking about stewardship, which is a church word for talking about, or a word for talking about how we take care of the resources that we have. So like any household, we can do as much as possible with the money and the time and the energy that we have. So if you are holding an annual report or have it on your phone and you want to look at page 8, and Nico, Tristan, and Scott, I'm going to do my best to go through this in order, but I apologize that not everything is page 1 through 20. But if you look at page 8, it's got a nice little colorful pie graph in the corner. This is the overview of our church's, our household's money last year. A couple things I can point out to you. Let's see. Actually, let's look at page 9. I think it's a little easier to spot this on page 9. On page 9, you can see what we spent last year. That's that number, 199,302. That's how much we spent running this church last year, doing all the stuff we did, from offerings to programs to staff and salaries to heating the building and paying utilities and all of those things. We took in 196,818 last year. That's about 22,000 than we took in the prior year. A couple of things impacted that. One was we took in a little bit less in the offering plate, but the biggest part of the deficit is because we get some money, a little bit of money each year, from some investments, from money that people left this church when they died. And if you had any money in the stock market in any form last year, you know it was not the best year. Well, that impacted the church just like it impacted many of our household budgets. On the other hand, we spent about 11,000 less than in 2021, so that put our deficit at that red number in the middle of the page, where we spent about 2,483 less last year than we took in. If you flip now to pages 10 and 11, you can see this year's budget in two different forms. One is a bunch of numbers. I'm one of those who likes numbers. I have an easier time looking at a budget as a list of numbers, but what I have learned from many classes on finances is that that's not true for most people. So if you are one of those whose head begins to swim when you look at a bunch of numbers, those numbers are put into a story form called the 2023 narrative budget, and it's trying to take the money that we spend and look at what we actually do with that. So if you look, for example, at the first thing on there, worship and music, that is that kind of dark pink color in the pie graph. You can see that about 30%, is that right? Yeah, 30% of the money that we take in and the money we spend is spent on worship and music. I mean, part of that is providing a space for us to gather and paying salaries for our musicians and myself and running bulletins and all of those things, but communion supplies, all of those things, that's part of what that 30% goes to. But you can read through and see where your money, our money, is being spent this year. If you're joining online, there's some things that go with that. We pay copyright fees to be able to put music up on YouTube so that you can hopefully sing along and hear the wonderful music that our choir offers. So all of that's part of that 30%. And I'm going to pause there, and as I said, I want to have a chance both to hear from you all involved in these ministries and for you to ask questions. If you if you're going to come up and speak, let me invite you. I'm going to turn on this mic down here. Just saves messing with stairs. And it's already on. Thank you, Scott, for being on top of things, our digital media team. But we've got a wonderful committee of dedicated folks who help make sure our church finances stay in order throughout the year. David Rohn has chaired that committee for us for a couple years. So I'm going to invite David. Do you want to come up and share anything, or if you all have any questions about anything, feel free to harass David with those questions at this point. I do mean that, though. I hope not only can you hear from different folks, but have a chance to have conversation. If you've been a part of a household where money is ever a topic, you know that open and honest discussion about it is a healthy way to approach things. So, David, turning it over to you if you want to say.
Thanks, Brian. Harass away. Yeah, there's a couple of things that are worth talking about in terms of the church finances, and one is that if you look at our budget, right, what you'll see is that it's in the red. Talk into the mic. Thank you.
To take the mic out and hand it to people so that didn't happen. You can tell I ignored Scott's instructions.
All right. So our budget calls for us to spend more money than we're going to take in. And that, is pretty uncomfortable to go forward with that, but I think we're going to be okay. One of the big things that we did during the year, all right, so your document says SFP. SFP is Stewardship, Finance, and Personnel. And we ran the stewardship campaign with the goal of getting $170,000 in pledges, and we ended up with about $157,000 in pledges, which was about $13,000 short of our goal, which is also equal to the amount of the deficit in our budget. But having said that, I want to sincerely and heartfeltly thank everybody for their generosity. Thank you for doing as much as you did. I'm feeling okay with having a budget deficit because we have finished a number of years in the black. And, when you establish a budget, what you're saying is, this is what we think we're going to do, right? This is just a proposal. It's kind of a plan for spending throughout the year. And we'll always do better or worse than our plans. But I feel like we're close. If you look at the church's financial reserve, we're not in dire situations. So that's stewardship. Quickly, personnel, we did have some activity during the year, and that is Elaine Culp retired, and we needed to find her replacement, so we conducted a search, and we hired Jessica Berry, who we felt was the best out of about 35 applicants for that position. What else? Thanks. Yeah. You'll notice that our committee has an unusually large budget this year, and that is because we've had to retain an attorney to do some legal work for us on the behalf of the Tom Dixon Fund, which is an endowment that was left to the church of approximately $800,000. And it's going through some transition, and we need legal help. So, and lawyers are expensive. So, any questions? Uh-oh. It was in the 80s, yeah. And so we've had that for a long time, and there, it's really quite a bit of a largesse for the church to receive a gift like that. And we have used that money. I mean, we have put that money to work, and over the years done a lot of things with it. So it's been very helpful. Lydia. Right. So it's in a trust, and the trust has two stipulations. One, don't lose money, right, which means invest in U.S. government-backed securities. Don't lose any money. And the second is give the proceeds to the church for their good work. So that's pretty much it. It gets complicated because I can get into the legal complications in that trustees are guided by state law, and transitions of trustees are carefully stipulated by state law. And the bank was the trustee, Security Federal was the trustee, and it sold this last year, or 2021, it sold, and the people that bought it said, we don't do trusts. So there was some scrambling about what do we do, right, for a trustee, and we took some expedient and kind of emergency measures that we now need to correct. So we're doing that. Yeah, so we don't have, we can't, it's like, oh, we got $800,000, let's spend it. No, we cannot spend the principal. That's the second thing. The first thing is don't lose money, and the second thing is you can't spend the principal. You can only spend the interest. Yes, and yeah, no, last year, no, last year we got in into the situation where U.S. government-backed securities were paying so little at the beginning. At some point, it got down to the point of this is looking like it's going to be nothing this year, but and that caused us to experience a certain amount of anxiety. But fortunately, inflation has arrived and interest rates are going up, so we're okay. We're not in the desperate situation that it looked like we were going to be in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Any other questions? I really appreciate it. I am mindful we got other committees to get through too, and no. But anybody have any questions for David before I let him go? I mean, this is an important piece of what we do as a church, so I don't want to rush it, but I want to make sure we have time for everybody. So.
All right, well,
yeah.
Okay, give me permission to say one more thing.
Okay, sure.
And that is that the church has some money that people have left in their wills. Please think about that. Please consider doing that, right? Because that is the kind of a flame that will keep us going, right? If we have those kind of resources, it'll help keep whatever flame is burning here will help keep that alive.
Yeah, thank you, David. I was going to make that pitch if you didn't, because we could not do what we do today were it not for the generosity of people of previous generations who have done exactly that. So. Well, I used as an example a moment ago, one of the ways we spend our money is on worship. And so let's celebrate that for a moment. I think that's the single biggest chunk of how we spend our money, if you look at that pie graph. Because there's a lot of people involved in making this thing that we do happen on Sundays. We have our music leadership team of Paul and Joan and Roddy back here. We have our choir, our handbell choir that Joan leads. We have Bill and Rebecca, who lead us in meditation most every Sundays, along with 4 times a year the peacemaking team. We have our incredible digital media team up in the balcony that runs our live stream on YouTube, the soundboard, so you all can hear me and not fall asleep during church because they make it too loud for you to do that. Run our camera, our liturgists like Stacy this morning that get up and read. Our worship team, chaired by Bobby this year, and Paul, who and others you'll hear from in a little bit, who change the paraments and prepare communion and check oil in the candles so they light on Sundays. And so as we celebrate all of those different contributions, let's take a moment and hear from them. So worship team, Bobby or Paul, Paul, I know you're going to talk about music in a moment, but do you all want to say anything more about worship team? Thank you, Scott. Yes.
So they can hear you online.
Yeah.
As with any committee in this church, help is welcome. There's lots of things that are done behind the scenes, whether it's worship or Christian education or community life, grounds, whatever. Please, please help.
Yeah, that's the other piece that is the reality. We cannot do any of this without all of us together. Next on my list, Scott, since you are holding the mic, is our digital media team. You want to share a little bit about?
Is this on? Good morning, everybody. I think they're having a little bit of fun upstairs. I want to tell you a little bit about the digital media team and what we do here. The first thing, as you could see, is that we are responsible for all of the audio and sound, not only here in the church, but downstairs in the hall. That's making sure all of the microphones are working. That's making sure that we can hear the choir clearly, not just here during service, but we're doing 2 systems at one time. We have what you hear in the church, and we also have what goes through to the online service and the online stream. So every week, although those that are watching us online join us for an hour, it takes many hours to prepare the service. It also takes many of us to make that come together. At minimum, we need 4 people. Ideally, we need 5 every week. We have 2 computers, a camera, a soundboard up there. We have to monitor a chat room that takes place during the service. If someone online says there's an audio problem or a feed problem, one of us has to divert to that. So it is pretty complex. Some people have even said, oh, we could hear you guys talking up there. Are you having fun? And I have to laugh because I say it's usually not fun. It's usually trying to quickly resolve an issue. And although it's very challenging, we do have fun. None of us could do it without each other. Tristan, Nico, Richard, Wally, up there during the week, we all learn each other's jobs. It is not something that you cannot learn. I encourage, if anyone has an opportunity to join the digital media team, we can use help. Just like Bobby said, the worship team, we can use help because it will allow some of us to participate in other things with the church. Some of us have wanted to join bell choir, but we couldn't because we can't be up there and down here at the same time. So if more of you can say, hey, occasionally we're willing to learn, so if you need us, we can jump up there, that would be good. That would absolutely be great. You could email me, scott@fpcelizabethton.org, and just let me know you're interested, and we'll schedule a time when you're here to come upstairs and just shadow and learn. But we do have a lot of fun. It is quite complex. We get a few good laughs when we spend time during the week loading everything for the service, loading in the hymns in the system in order, and then suddenly the hymn comes up and Paul comes to the microphone and goes, we're going to start with verse 2, then go to verse 5, and then swing back to 1. And of course, that's when you see us scrambling and it looks like nothing makes sense online. But we do have a lot of fun. If you can join us, please take a moment to come out. A couple of fun facts. Last year, our stream was viewed over 5,000 times, our services, so that's quite interesting. And we get statistics like how many of you watch on your computer, how many watch on TV, on your phones, and that does help us tailor to make sure everyone is able to participate and see the service the best they can. Rebecca, you had a question? Are we the only team with the mascot? Who's our mascot? Oh, Rakshan. No. Rakshan only gets involved when Brian's sermon goes too long. Then he starts to do these little moans to kind of give Brian a cue that, it's time to end it. So, any other questions? All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Scott. How much of your chatter up there is reminding you to turn my lapel mic on?
That's another funny thing is that it's comical because we do try to communicate down here when there's problems, but sometimes it results in us like having to do the Macarena, up there, belt pack and different things like that. So we do get a good laugh on a lot of stuff. Well, please, if you could join us, consider volunteering. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, you want to say a little bit about music, and then we're going to celebrate music with our choir this morning. Jeff, Scott there, yeah.
All right, Scott, we got it. Think about Sunday morning and think how much music is in a service on Sunday mornings. When you calculate it all up, between 8 and 11 pieces of music are performed or presented each Sunday morning. I said performed, and we don't perform. We worship together. And it takes a lot of preparation with that. And we want you to know that between the chancel choir and also the bell choir, a lot of energy and effort goes into preparing each Sunday morning. And I know you celebrate them with me. And our wonderful pianists, of course, with Joan and Roddy. And then, of course, we have our cellist up here with Cody. We are so grateful for the instrumentation. And this morning you're going to hear from Wally. He's going to play for us for our offertory. So music is an extraordinarily important part of this church. For example, you look at our bell choir, and they perform for us as much, again, I use that word perform, they present for us on services periodically throughout the year. Joan went to Montreat this last spring and was able to participate in an advanced and intermediate bell choir program over there, and brings back opportunities of music that we can perform. We have between 3 and 5 octaves in our bell choir. And she would like to invite you to come back and make it really 3 to 5 octaves in the bell choir. Because it sometimes these folks, along with Brian, who's down there playing, they have to ring several bells at one time. We would love to have you participate with our bell choir, or go up there so they can come down here and participate with their bell choir as well. Last time the bells played for us, after the service, we were downstairs, and a member of this congregation came up to me and they said, "The bells, that is just absolutely heavenly, Paul. Isn't that just beautiful?" And I said, "It truly is." So we thank Joan and we thank the bell choir for all that they provide for us. 5 people up here today who are going to sing. We'd like to have 15 people up here singing, and we want to invite you, if you'd like to be a member of the bells ringers, if you'd like to be a member of the choir, we would like for you to contact me. Again, I'm easy to find. Just contact the church. My email's all located on the website, so make certain that you just contact me, or just call me on the phone if you want to, and I'll be glad to schedule time to visit with you and talk to you more about our music program. Now, before I finish, does anybody have any questions? Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say it's a small choir that makes a big sound.
Thank you very much. I so appreciate that. We do work at it, and we do enjoy singing for you. And speaking of singing, we're going to do a piece that we've not done very long ago, but I don't know if anything we have sung, Brian, that gets more people's attention, and I've had more response on, I guess, and said, "I really love that piece." So I know we've done this back in this fall, but we wanted to do a special one for you today again, so we hope you enjoy it. We are singing. And you can bebop to this if you want to. It's okay.
burdens are heavy to bear. Our shelter is God alone. Our feet are lifted high, yes, high upon a rock. See a Habakkuk and tiny green coast. 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 We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our God. We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our light. We walk in the strength of the Lord. God's love is ever sure. We shout that the world may hear. We sing a joyful song. See a Habakkuk and tiny green coast. 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 We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our light. We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our light. We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our light. We are singing, singing, we are singing, singing, we are singing, for the Lord is our light.
So I am noticing the time. You all hear from me every Sunday, so I'm going to skip most of my notes about this, but because I think it's important to hear from one another and to continue to celebrate these ministries. So I'm going to skip a lot of what I wanted to say. But one of the things, certainly, that's an important part of any household is caring for one another and doing stuff together. We've got a couple of groups that help us do that, so I want to invite us to hear from those groups very quickly. First, I've got on my list is our incredible group of deacons. Melody, you're back there. Yeah, you want to... Oh, Melody's got props too, I think.
Kind of. Want me to push it down? Can you hear me now? Thank you. Is that good? I wish that we could take our choir with us when we try to make others feel better when they're ill, or they're sick, or they need help, because I bet they would feel much better if they could hear this choir whenever we visit. That would be a wonderful thing. The deacons have been amazing. They try very hard to stay in touch with those on their care list, and I'm going to ask you, if there's any time that you need something, please let them know. They're amazing to work with. It's been a lot of fun. Well, not always fun, but very heartwarming. We are still working on the memorial garden over on the side, and we did a few things last summer, and we're going to be doing again as soon as the weather clears up and we can replant, remulch. And I'm going to ask a favor of you. If anybody wants to bring in a rock like this, just a flat, round river rock, I will collect them, or I will ask you to put them by the air conditioning unit on the side of the building so that we can continue to work on our garden, and that would be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melody, and thank you so much to our deacons for providing such fantastic care for our congregation, our church family. We've got a Christian education team. Pat is the chairperson of that this year. They do, Pat, you want to say anything about that? Or, thank you. Yeah. So we can get Pat on the camera for folks at home.
I don't actually have a lot to say because we don't have, our Christian education this year is focused on a mutual retreat that we're going to do at the camp with Covenant Presbyterian, and you'll be hearing more about that from Brian or me.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think Carol's saying, yeah, okay. I'll just repeat that. Our Christian Ed team does things including kind of overseeing and helping support Adult Forum, our Science and Faith Month that starts next month, youth retreats, and our church retreat we're going to share with Covenant Presbyterian Church this year at the camp in April. So yeah, you'll hear more about that, and I hope many of you will be able to join us on that. Our community life team is another huge part of what we do together, especially all those times we get to eat and together. Suzanne and Julie kind of work together on that. Suzanne, you want to say anything in particular? Or? I'm sorry. No, you're fine. Yeah, we don't have to hear from everybody, and I wasn't, sure who wanted to share and who didn't, but Bean Addictions, Dinner on the Grounds, picnics, the big meal at our 240th anniversary celebration in August, the Gratitude Dinner, the Christmas dinner, those all happen because of our fantastic community life team, and Julie Wade and Suzanne have helped to coordinate that this year. I have kind of lumped under the stuff that we do together, building and grounds too, and I'll say a quick word about that, but first, Charles and Jeff are our folks that do so much for us. Charles, you want to say anything? Yeah, sure, yeah.
I was just thinking this morning, I think this is the oldest church in the area, or one of the oldest, I guess.
Certainly the oldest in Elizabethton. We were 1782, is that right?
Yeah, so we've been around for a long time.
Yeah.
This building, I know, is at least around 70 years old. I remember Sutton Brown, who used to live next door here, talking about climbing on the rafters when they were building this place. So that's been here around 70 years. But I turned 70 a couple of weeks ago, and I was starting to think about this church and our congregation. I might be younger than most of the people here. I don't know anymore because we're getting pretty old. But when you hit 70, you start to have aches and pains, and things have to be repaired. That's what's happening to this church now, and so it's kind of an ongoing problem, and we've had a lot of issues this past year. I have to thank, I know you all think Paul is that pretty face back there, but he does a lot for us. Yeah, with his, he does a lot of contacts for us with, I guess, the building, to keep the building running is basically what he does. So we're very appreciative of that. And then Mike Rose and Richard and I have been doing the leaves here for a long time, and that's been quite a chore. I have to thank Rebecca for donating her father's, I don't know what you call that thing. It's a leaf vacuum, big sucker-upper, but it's made it a whole lot easier. So we've had a lot of work to do. Mike and Richard and I also replaced the rotted column in the back there. So we're doing some of the things. I know some of the older people here remember George and George Sykes and Paul Defoe, and we're kind of turning into those three now. Three of us to do what those two guys did. So it's a lot of work, but if anybody is willing to help with us, we'd appreciate it if you've got any skills that could do for us. So we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Charles. I want to say one quick thing about building and grounds, and that is to take a look at some point in your report on page 11 under facilities, because while this building is an important part of what we're doing today and all these things we've talked about, this building is used by a lot of other people. This is also a piece of our outreach to the community in all of the ways and different groups that make use of this building. And so I hope you appreciate the work Building and Grounds does, not just to keep this space warm and safe for us, but the way that this building provides a safe space for so many other groups to meet. It really is an important part of our outreach to the community. And you can see a list of a lot of other groups that use this on page 11 under facilities. So our final kind of group of what we do as a family is to reach out beyond just our family system. And that starts with our welcoming team, who hopefully helps to welcome in new faces. And Kathy and Thomas are our chairpersons for that this year. Kathy's making her way up to share.
Well, the welcoming team used to be called the membership team, and we still are involved in both of these things, but we felt like welcoming is just really a key part of who we are as a church, and that we feel that we are a welcoming, affirming church, and so therefore that is our emphasis. And so one of our key things is welcoming visitors, and we try to be intentional about that, but we actually all of you all are part of the welcoming team. It's not just a little core group. It really takes all of us to have that attitude and want to reach out to folks and let them know that what's special about here and that we are really happy to have them with us. Shouldn't have to say it, but it's really a vital part of any vibrant church community, especially one that says it's welcoming. You think?
Yes.
So anyway, and of course membership is also a key part. We facilitate the joining process, and yes, we do think it's important to be for folks to participate at whatever level they're comfortable with, and if you want to be a member, we would really appreciate it, because we do need that kind of commitment. It helps in terms of the leadership for this church to have folks actually say, yes, I'm going to be a member. So it helps for the future of the church. Oh, and my goodness, I've almost forgotten what I messed up with on the annual report. I neglected one of our new key members, Megan Quillen. And Megan joined us a year ago, actually, on January the 23rd. I looked it up this morning. And so we're so pleased that she's a new member, or fairly new. And she'd already been participating for quite a couple of years, right? And of course, then we also are thrilled to have the other 4 new members, Gary and Lori Mongolo, and Zachary Bosco, and Linda Honeycutt. So it's all good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kathy. A big part of our outreach, too, is our community outreach. You all hear about the Casserole Brigade and other things. Julia helps coordinate that for us. So, Julia.
I'm going to make it real short. We have 3 groups in the community outreach. Shepherd's Inn, which you heard all about, Christmas with the alternative giving. Then there's also the Casserole Brigade, which I love every single one of you who bring us casseroles. Number 3 is ARM, Assistance and Resource Ministries. Stacy here is our lonely sole representative from this church that volunteers there. She is involved in face-to-face interviewing people. She has wonderful people skills and great deals of compassion. And if any of you want to use your social work skills, she could probably train you very easily. If you have no people skills, there's always groceries to be unpacked. So think about it.
Thank you, Julia, and to our community outreach team. Another way we do outreach is to, particularly to LGBTQIA community, and our More Light team coordinates that for us. Tristan and Nico, I guess, are some of the members on that team. Y'all, yeah, come on up. And so I'm going to let them share for a moment, and Nico has a particular ministry he's going to share about and give us an opportunity to know how we can engage with that too. So.
All right, so I think I'm lucky enough to know everybody here, but in case you don't know me, my name is Tristan, and I am here talking about the More Light Committee. Now, More Light, in case anybody doesn't know, is also a national organization that, according to the Google search I did this very morning, is involved with over 230 Presbyterian churches similar to this one, which is really incredible. And in their own words, the mission of More Light Presbyterians is to work for the full participation of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual people in the life and ministry and witness of the Presbyterian Church. Now, your More Light committee here does a couple things, small things you might have noticed, like we have a bin of pronoun buttons right at the door. And just as a personal note, that was there when my husband and I joined the church, which was really calming for us coming in like as new members to see that there. That was really cool. We facilitate the presence at Tri-Pride, which is the local Pride Festival that takes place all over the Tri-Cities. It jumps Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol. We were at this very last one, which was the first one since COVID, taking place in Bristol. Someone's gonna have to fact check me on this, but I think I heard somewhere that it might have been the first Pride Parade that took place on 2 states at the exact same time since we marched down State Street, so that was really cool. So your church was there with a big banner. It was awesome. People love it, tabling. This year, we're planning on driving ourselves especially crazy and doing 2 festivals because the Rainbow Festival happened this past year, which had amazing community involvement. It was really, really cool. The newly opened Pride Center puts that on. So we'd like to be at that too, and we might be sharing that with a table with some other affirming churches in the area. We don't know. We're working out all of that. Additionally, you probably know that we do a More Light Sunday every year, which is an LGBT-led and focused service. So watch out for that. I don't have too much more to say, so let me wrap up and say that say what we really need, right? Because we have the resources needed for what we do. We did the cookbook sales, we did the t-shirt that Nico drew, right? And we already have a really great, awesome, affirming community here, right? But what we would really like is feedback, primarily on like the theme and shape that More Light Sunday should be this year. We've done lots of different stuff. If you have any cool ideas for that, it's not anything for certain yet. And also feedback on if you do have ideas on something we might have missed that could make this a more affirming, welcoming church community. And also participation. We have a lot of ideas this year, and it's a bit of a skeleton crew. We'd like to do more presentations or guest speakers like we did this year with Brian Ellison. We'd like to add more LGBT resources to the church website, and we'd like to do more outward-facing activities too with the Pride Center and with organizations like PRISM that Nico's about to talk to. But that just requires people involved. So if you would like to be involved and you're not currently, you can talk to Jane. If you don't have Jane's contact info or don't know who that is, you can talk to me and I will get you that person. So I believe that's all I have. And then I'm gonna turn it over to Nico, okay?
I wonder if I should stand on this. You know what? I think that will work. I'll just, no, well, yeah, sure. Like this. No, I'll come back down. No, I'm fine. My goodness.
Okay.
I got it. I think I got it. Yeah, this sounds good, right? Yes. Okay. Hello, I'm Tristan's husband. I'm Nico. And I have our Minute for Mission today, which is what he just mentioned, PRISM, P-R-I-S-M. Sometimes people think it says prison. It's not. It's quite the opposite. But as he also mentioned with the opening of the Pride Community and Education Center of the Tri-Cities, they got a physical location a couple years ago in downtown Johnson City. And with that, there arose a need in the community for a space for LGBT teens to meet one another and just be themselves with guidance and support from other LGBT adults. So, thus, PRISM became a support group for LGBT teens that was born thanks to 2 mental health counselors in the area that are very passionate about this mission. And this group is, just the details of it, for ages 13 to 17. And they meet every first and third Saturday of the month from 2 to 4 p.m. We are moving spaces yet again because this is a good problem, but we have too many kids now, and we needed to move spaces because the Pride Center is a little cramped for us now. We want them to be able to run around and, noise level and whatnot, because they can get pretty loud, 13 to 17. That's a beautiful age, isn't it? No, they're wonderful kids. But if anyone knows any place in Johnson City that may be willing to host us for little money to free, that would be great. We have a place we're thinking of right now, but we'll see. And where was I? Oh yeah, it has grown significantly in the short year and a half that we've been operating. If I had to guess, I would say that if we had all our kids together at once, it'd be around 50, and that's always growing, so that's a great problem to have. I want to note that these teens don't all go to the same school. In fact, one of them comes to almost every single meeting, and they're all the way from Abingdon, and many of them are homeschooled. So their opportunities to meet other teens like them are very limited, especially given our geographical location and political climate and all that good stuff. Like I mentioned, we're entirely volunteer-led by full-time mental health counselors and human services professionals. We have zero money coming in, aside from the fundraising that we did at the Johnson City Rainbow Festival and at Tri-Pride. And we often use our own money to supply some snacks and drinks for our meetings, some art supplies, anything like that. So a big part of the money that we did raise from Rainbow Festival and all that has gone towards ordering gender-affirming clothing and accessories that help alleviate gender dysphoria, such as chest binders for our teens who may not have access to purchasing these items themselves. It's a very important aspect of how we empower them and support them. They do have pretty affirming guardians to begin with, since they bring them to these meetings, but they don't always know the best way to support them like we do. So with that, I hope you'll consider donating to this cause and showing these lovely teens that there are people, adults out there that are rooting for them, support them, and it all comes from a church in Elizabethton that I think is very out of the ordinary for them to experience. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nico. And Carol's making her way up here, represent our last committee and part of how we reach out not just in the community, but to creation as well. So, yeah, Carol, thanks.
Yes, I'd particularly like to thank people who have helped with signing letters and or petitions and showing up for litter cleanups and all the sorts of things that the Peacemaking Committee has done. The goal is stated in the first paragraph, the first sentence, that we help to enable the church to extend God's peace to individuals, communities, and earth. And that can be a variety of things. Whatever your beliefs, I personally think we are the hands and the voice of God, and she helps us. So there's a point of view. Please consider helping us, even if you are what you would consider part-time. You know, if you find an activity that particularly resonates with you, please help. Please suggest any ideas that you might have that we could pursue. So we're going to be meeting right after service, both online and with with people here, and we'd like to sort of steer the committee in a direction that that the community wants us to follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you all. I know we're past the sacred 12 o'clock hour. I promise we're wrapping up here, but I appreciate your patience and your time with this, because I think this is important to celebrate what we do. All of these wonderful things and so much more are a part of what this church does. To get involved with any of these things you've heard about, on your last couple of pages, there are all these email addresses and contact information and names of people that help coordinate all of these ministries. Reach out. Figure out where you want to be involved, because we can't do any of this without all of us working together. We do have a quick item of business to take care of, which is to elect 4 folks to be on the nominating committee this year. Nominating committee are the folks that come together and suggest names to you all in the fall to be elders and deacons. And you've heard from many of the elders and deacons today. So because we have a quorum, I'm going to, at this point, open up the congregational meeting part, and I've announced the one item of business. So the floor is now open for volunteers or nominations to be on that committee. And there we go. So if you would be willing to be on that committee or know of somebody that you think would be good on it, please nominate. If you're online and would like to nominate or volunteer, please type that in, and Nico or Tristan or Scott up there can let me know, and we'll add those. But floor's open. Rebecca Nunley, are you willing to, do you accept the nomination? Okay, there's one. All right, Kathy? Mike Rose. Mike, do you accept the nomination? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mike. We need 2 more, folks. Any volunteers or other nominations? Gregory. Gregory? Do you decline? Sorry. Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, I'm sorry. So, yeah, unfortunately, Gregory is ineligible. Okay, Carol, yeah. Thank you, Carol. Okay, one more. Remember, lunch comes after this. So, an additional volunteer nomination. Roddy, you willing to serve? Thank you. Okay, so you can leave the floor open and nominate more, or I can entertain a motion that nominations close and Rebecca, Mike, Carol, and Roddy be elected by acclamation. The number of people motioning and seconding was okay. I heard Paul and I saw Wally's hand, so we'll count those 2 for minutes purposes. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, then we are skipping to the last 2 things, which is our offering, and Wally is going to play for us as we receive our offering, and then we're going to close with a benediction we're going to sing together. So, Wally and Cody, I think Cody is accompanying as well. Okay.
Let me move him over just a little bit. Is it okay? Bill, can you move him? I'm going to be close to the mic. Just one scoot over. Just one scoot. There you go. I'm sorry, guys. Thank you. has pardoned me, and to the Spirit, whose life has set me free, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. Amen. World without end, without end. Amen. World without end, without end. Amen. World without end, without end. Amen. As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be.
Something a little different today, and instead of me offering the benediction to you, first, my charge is this: be joyful about what this church does. Be excited about what's coming up this year and look for ways to be a part of it. I offer words of an Irish blessing every Sunday, and you'll find today those words are in your bulletin set to music. One of my favorite traditions at the church I grew up in, at the last church I served, was we would end every Sunday by singing the benediction to one another. So I'm going to invite us to sing the benediction to one another today. I know we're Presbyterian and we like being in our pews and having our space, but let me invite us just for this. Spread out and let's make a circle around the sanctuary as best we can. We are COVID, so we don't have to hold hands, or you can give personal space as needed. But look at the faces of your church family. We are gathered around a table together, sharing space. And so as we offer our benediction, let me invite us to sing and offer these words of blessing to one another and our church family as we part today. Paul, sorry, do you have instructions for us, or are we just going to jump right in and sing? Follow me. Okay.